Hi there. Okay, well, I've gone ahead and done some more sewing, and this is what I've come up with. Okay, I've got our pieces here. Got the two bottom pieces and the two tongues, and that's what they look like when they're finished. Okay, and you'll notice that the sides are straight, and where in the version 1 they flared out at the back, and that didn't work out just the way I had hoped, and so I've straightened the sides out. We're probably going to have to cut them off when we install them, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right now we're going to sew up the moccasin sides and bottom, and this is how we do it. Okay, so we take the moccasin and flip it over so that it's I guess upside down, and find our two corners. Okay, I think I would like to find the two corners that are at the back. Okay, you've sewed those lines that are straight. The best thing to do is to line those two lines up and then put a clip on it, and then you can go to the front and put a clip on the front, because right now we need the back to be as accurate as possible. And then what we'll do is we'll put one on the back kind of towards the middle there. So that's what we're looking at. Now you can see on the pattern we've still got our white mark, and that would have been our cut line, which is normally the cut line, but I left the extra fabric, the extra leather on the end, so that we got a little bit more to play with. So with that, I line the edges of the lining, the satin lining, together. And where I'm going to put my stitching is I'm going to follow just right next to that original seam. Okay, and then when you do that, make sure you take your tail here, stick it in, and grab it and pull it to the front, so that you don't risk the possibility of sewing it into a place where it's not supposed to be. Then what we have to do is to take our moccasin, and we kind of got to fold the bottom. Okay, so we fold it, and that way we can get most of the sewing underneath the foot of the moccasin. Okay, and I have a couple of clips that I put on. Let's see if I can get these on here. I've got some other ones I'll use. It's a good idea to have a variety, then you don't have to struggle to make one type work. And these ones I've bent out a little bit so that they fit on here well. Okay, so I'm just going to put those on. Okay, then stretch everything out here, and again you can see where the two angles are. We've got the one angle that is going this way, and then we've got a change of direction right there. So what I like to do is to take one clip and put it on one side of the angle, and take another clip and put it on the other side. So now you've got the most important part secured. Okay, now go along and line up your seam here, adding some more clips as you go. Okay, now because this fabric and leather is black, sometimes it can be rather difficult to see when you've got material black and black thread. So what I do is take a piece of chalk, and right where those angles change, right where your stitching would stop, I put a mark. And that mark will be quite visible when you're sewing. And I usually give that at least 2 passes. 2 is good. Okay. So are there any questions? I guess it's kind of hard for me to answer them at the moment. Now I'm going to sew it up on my machine here. And I'll just get us a little bit more focused here, a little better. We'll see how that works for the lighting. Okay. Now there's a point right about here where the stitching changes direction, so you're coming in on an angle and then the stitching changes straight up and down, so you just give it a little bit of lift, and there's only about a ½ an inch here between our white mark and where we are now that we sew with a straight up and down stitch. Okay, what I like to do now is to reinforce this last bit of stitching, and because my machine is an older one and it doesn't have a reverse, I back up the seam and put a smaller stitch, and then I go over top of the one that was just sewn. Okay, so that has really reinforced that stitching. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole thing one more time. I can take all this off. I'll leave the 2 on that are on the bottom. Okay, and then I'll go over it one more time. If anybody noticed, the thread that I'm using, the thread in the needle is a very heavy number 138, where the thread on the bobbin is much thinner. That works to allow you to use a heavier thread on the top if you put a lighter thread on the bottom. So I'm able to use a heavy stitch because I put a smaller thread on the bottom. It's just for as a preference that I have. You can use whatever type of thread you want, or whatever type your machine will handle. And we've already reinforced it with the first pass. So that'll be good. Okay, we'll just cut those off. I'll trim them up later. So then we can take the rest, take all the clips off. Okay, so this is what we're looking at right now. I'm going to zoom out now so that you can get a better look at it. And I'll just turn it back here. Sorry. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. Okay, we've just got this little bit of a tail, and if it's crooked, a few stitches can be taken out and straightened out. This is not bad at all. Okay, so we've got that. We've left our ankle trim open, and it is still not finished. So we've got that. Now what I do is I just grab it, turn it inside out. I like to get a stick now. So I get a stick and work out this bottom part here, this tail. Okay, so that's not too bad. Then what I'm going to do is, now you can see why we cut some of that insulation off, because otherwise we'd have an awful lot of bulk right there. But because we got rid of the insulation, we don't have that much. What you can do is, if you want, you don't need all this either. We can cut off some of it. Then I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to glue this down, and at the same time I'm going to, this is our tail here, or the reinforcing for the back of the ankle. So we'll glue that down, and then we're going to glue this down. You'll have to get some sticks and maybe some clamps to hold everything together while the glue dries, and then put your rivets in. Now this part here, we're going to be putting I would call it a waistband, but it's an ankle band of about 1.25 inches around the whole moccasin. And so with that, we want this part to remain loose. So this will be fastened down, and this will be loose so that you can get your fingers. It looks like maybe I cut this one a little short, but so that you can get your fingers in behind here. Okay, so now you would grab this to be able to pull up to get the slippers on easy, or the moccasins on easy. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, and I'll glue up the back here and put the rivets in. Then I'll come back and we'll talk about putting a waistband on here. Now what happens is that when you fold that over, you gain some height on the heel part. Okay, so if you look, you can see how much the ankle has grown in the back, and that's because of that angle. Now this is another good reason that you left this long, the inside wider. Now you can put some glue on the inside and glue down this piece in here. I like to take a hammer and hammer it down real good so that it's really tight in there. And we will eventually put a whole new piece down here so that it helps your foot to slide in and out easier.